Some of the challenges that you're going to run into in this are particularly relevant on the encoding side. So a lot of these next-gen codecs are very difficult to encode. AV1 in particular is extremely challenging to encode, although it's getting much more efficient. As an example, at Bitmovin we did a live stream of AV1 at 1.5 megabit a little over a year ago. And that took 200 cores to do that in real time. So it's not an architecture that you can really deploy in a modern environment. But that's improving quite significantly. For example, we also got that down to 32 cores much more recently. And that's going to continue to move down even further as the codec becomes really finalized and it's really able to be optimized for it. Just to be clear, that 200 cores was on a very early version of the codec, so it has lots of debug code in it, and it's not really by any means a market-ready product at that point. We are getting much closer to the point that that's a market-ready product, and it's something that we can finally start really focusing on optimizing that and making that much more efficient. But given today, it's a really, really challenging thing to do. So that's not something you really want to do for every asset. And then you have to really calculate out what benefit that's going to have to you. So let's go take a look at what that encoding decisioning. So this is really where you have to go make your choices about this based upon those challenges of those demands of that encoding, how much it takes to do that, the replication of your assets. You have to figure out what is the right choice for the assets that you have, what's the right choice for your business model. So things to look at are, for instance, how likely is it that an asset is going to cross a threshold where it makes sense that the efficiency of these new codecs are going to give you benefit? Is an asset likely to do that already, or is it something that will do that? And then you also want to make sure that the decisions that you've made are valid decisions, that these are things that are going to let you really benefit your business, that they're not just kind of theories that are going to potentially improve it. You want to see that actually happening. So the way to do that is really with analytics. So analytics are critical here. As we showed you on some of the earlier slides, there's a broad difference in the different devices that support these different codecs. And different customers, different sites, different media properties have very different audiences. So it's important to use an analytics tool to understand what your audience is like. Are they predominantly Android devices? Are they predominantly users who have a Chrome browser? Or maybe they're iOS devices, maybe they're Safari devices, perhaps they're all OTT, Apple TV users or something like that. And all of those devices are going to have different support for different codecs in the market. So you're going to want to use that as one of your first metrics to look at when you determine what your encoding profile is going to be like. And then the next part that's really important here is making sure that you're using that right now, because some of those codecs are really computationally expensive, that you're using that on the assets that are going to make a big difference. So content that's going to go viral, that you think is going to go viral, that's a good piece of content that's likely to benefit from those more advanced, more efficient codecs. Then, of course, you can also monitor your library continuously, see what assets are crossing that threshold after the fact. Perhaps you're looking at, for instance, an initial window when you upload an asset or release an asset onto your properties. If you see a certain velocity of popularity for that asset, that's a good indicator that you might want to very quickly dispatch an encoding job to your encoding farm or whatever resource you're using for that into one of those other codecs, so you can, again, benefit from that. And you want to make sure you do that as soon as possible. So it's important to have your analytics be as close to real time as possible so you know what that content is doing, know how to make those encoding decisions there.